Welcome to another episode of the Cognitive Discourse. Today I have another guest, which I'm excited to have on. I was on his podcast a couple weeks ago and we had a great conversation, and I just kind of wanted to continue that conversation and bring him over and share his awesomeness with my audience as well. He's the host of Behind the Behind podcast. So without further ado, everyone welcome Sidney. Sidney, how you doing today, man?
Hey, man. I'm doing good. I'm cold.
I quickly forgot how to pronounce your last name again. How do you pronounce your last name?
Prado.
Prado. Okay. Every time I look at it, I want to say Pardue for some reason. So,
My real name is Cedinho Peter Patrice Prado,
oh
but
wow.
Sidney Peter Patrick Prado for us white folk.
Yeah, I it's okay with my last name. There's a lot of tongue rolling that is involved with the
Yeah.
R's, and I just end up getting really white boy with it and saying Carrasco, and so it makes my mom really mad because even when I was in French class in high school, I would try to make it sound as white as possible,
I
and
feel that.
it annoy my teachers. I'd be like, "Como tu t'appelles? Je m'appelle
Yeah.
Joseph."
I just recently, I say recently, within the last 10 years, I learned that I was 50% Brazilian.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm trying to like get in touch with that. But I also, man, the conversation every time I tell somebody that, they're like, "There's no way. You're whiter than the moon." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on the same page as you, man. I don't believe it either."
And you got the beautiful color eyes too, so it's like I've gotten that pretty much my whole life. And growing up in San Antonio, like I had to prove my Mexicanness to Mexicans. Like even when we first got together and I met some of her families, I remember going to her house and her uncle opened the door and he was basically like, "Who's this?" And she's like, "Oh, it's my boyfriend." And he looked at me dead in the eyes and goes, "You Mexican?" I was like, "Yeah, man." And he goes, "What's your last name?" I was like, "Carrasco." He's like, "I don't know, man." So I literally pulled out my ID and I was like, "Look, bro, there's my name." He's like, "All right, you can come in." He's like, "You know Spanish?" I was like, "Hell no." I was like, "I was raised in Texas. Hell no. I'm a white Mexican."
Yeah, I remember dating girls in San Antonio, and it was very. I would hear their family go Blanco Diablo, the White Devil, all the time, and they did it in jest. I'm a I'm a people pleaser. I was the guy that girls brought home to make their parents happy.
Mm,
So it was all in fun, good fun.
I feel you on that. I had a lot of chick friends that I were that's all they were. They were just friends, and I would have their moms always like kind of nudge me like, "Hey, when you gonna date my daughter?" I'm like, "I don't know. You ask them." Like, I got friend zone a long time ago. I was always just that guy. So I can kind of see how you feel a little bit about that. Like, I can agree with you a little bit on that. But yeah, I want to talk about your podcast a little bit. It's called Behind the Behind,
Hmm.
and you have like all kinds of awesome people on there from a wide range of individuals. So what was kind of the thought process behind the concept of your podcast?
So the ultimate goal was that 2020 was such a crappy year, and the best way to like counteract that is to bring some positivity. So I was like, you know what? I'll start a podcast and about dungeon masters that run their own D&D games. And then after the first 4 episodes, my interest got away from me, and now I'm interviewing doctors, psychics, musicians, other podcasters, comedians. It's getting insane. Politicians, like, yeah, I don't know where it's gonna go. I'm just excited to be on the ride.
So is there anything like any kind of particular guest you're looking for, or you're just willing to kind of have anybody just to kind of share their story and get their story out?
Um, yes and yes. It's more of like I have certain like professions in mind that I want to interview people of. Yesterday I interviewed a sumo wrestler, and it got me so excited about sumo wrestling that I I'm flabbergasted. Like my YouTube is a huge like wormhole of sumo wrestling now, and
They
I
have
never
crazy
thought,
diets, man.
dude. And he's new to it. He was a long time friend of mine from San Antonio. Actually, he lives in San Antonio as well. And I saw his videos of him like getting medals and like nationals and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, I need to talk to you. Tell me what's up. And like we just geeked out on some sumo wrestling. but like I really want to get a ghost hunter. Like that's like the next like level up for me. And then after that, I say I want a Power Ranger. I want to get a Power Ranger on the show so bad.
Oh, well, talk to me after the show. I might be able to help you with that.
All right.
But the ghost thing is amazing because it's funny you mentioned that. Yesterday, I went on a full like haunted binge of videos with Joey Diaz and Bobby Lee and Joe Rogan and all of them talking about like haunted stuff that they ran into. They were talking about the store, the Comedy Store, and how, you know, that used to be ran by the mob at one point and how it's haunted. And it got me thinking, I'm like, you know what? I've actually been through a lot of haunted situations. And you know, it's funny because we were kind of discussing what we were going to talk about. If that's something you want to go down, I'm more than welcome to share those with you. Because I was thinking about doing an episode by myself with that too, man. Like, so it's funny that you mentioned that because I've ran into some pretty crazy haunted stuff back in the day, and you know, that's something that. I mean, that's not what my podcast is centered around, but if I was to meet somebody who had some really cool stories, that's awesome. So, yeah, man, that's awesome. Like if you get some of that, I'll definitely tune in. And like I
Yeah.
said, Power Ranger thing, hit me up after the show. We'll talk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a skeptic that wants to believe. You know, I want to see proof. But everything I've encountered, you know, I worked at the 13th floor in San Antonio. I was a
Oh,
manager there,
cool.
and that building is 110 years old that they're working out of, and people swear left and right that there's ghosts. And like I would find a cold spot and they'd be like, "It's right next to you, oh my god." And I would look around and I'd look up and I'd see a vent, and I'd be like, "Yeah, because there's a vent right there blasting AC, man." Because I'm always looking for the logical explanation.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, my wife, she is more in tune with that stuff. And when I moved up to Dallas, she lived in a really old house with a roommate, and they said that there was a presence always there. And then every time I was home or I was in the house, they never felt it again.
Hmm.
And so I have like people telling me like, "Oh, it's because your presence, you know, you're protected," or something like that. And I'm like, "That okay." I mean, I'm not saying that they're wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying I'm never going to believe them. I have no information on it, so I
See,
can't give you a
you're like
guess.
the you're considered the opposite of like some people that I know. So like you may again like I'm the same way. I have to see it to believe it, and there's things that have happened in my life that I can't explain. But I had a friend who's the opposite of you. So it seems like from what you're saying, maybe spirits kind of evil spirits kind of go a separate way, right?
Yeah,
There's a light that's inside you. There's an energy that you emit that kind of deflects them.
they're scared.
Whereas, yeah, they don't want to mess with you, man. Whereas, like my buddy, I have a friend who actually teaches Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but he was a waiter back in the day when we were younger, and he told me a freaky story of how um when he was working one day, I guess some type of high priest was eating there, and he didn't know that that was who he was, but he ended up grabbing my friend by the wrist and was like, "Hey, man, every time you walk by me, you have this energy about you that like the dead like to follow you, like you attract them." And that freaked him out because he's like, he doesn't know who this guy is. He's just like doing his job. He's like, okay. He just kept going on and doing his job. But then he started thinking about that, and he's like, this is one of my friends who has encountered a lot of crazy stuff throughout his life. Like he's got a lot of stories, and interesting enough, if I can get him to contact you, I'll see if he'll contact you so he can share some of his stories with you. Because some of his stories he's told me back in the day, and they're pretty interesting. And when he moved in, when he lived with me for a little while at one of my mom's old houses, and when he moved in, a bunch of crazy stuff started happening in that apartment, or in that house rather. And we've kind of decided that whatever was in that house had to have been a little boy. And so there were a few things that happened in that house that were pretty creepy. And like I said, I've always been like you. I question a lot of things. A lot of that stuff doesn't scare me. I find it interesting. And I'm the type of dude that like, if this was a horror movie, I'd be the first person to die because I'm that guy. Like you hear a noise, what's that? And I'm running straight towards the noise instead of running away from it. I'm an idiot like that. Because I want to see it. Like I have to see it. And so if there's something going on, I'm the first in line to go and check it out.
Yeah, I'm under the premonition that A, there's a logical explanation to what's happening. B, if it is from some other dark place, it's not going to hurt me because it would have done that already. It would have killed everybody in this room.
Hmm.
Like, no, you have no power here. You
So
know?
do you believe that possibly that we're just on two separate planes, and then there's a chance that those planes cross every now and then,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's how we're able to kind of see the other side, if you will, or hear the other side?
Yeah, like science says that there's probably multi dimensions, and this would be, the practical explanation of these dimensions converging,
Hmm.
ours with theirs, and depending on if it's dead people or maleficent spirits or even good spirits, because we don't have any proof of like, oh, it is my grandma from back in the day. It could just be some old ghost,
Hmm.
or old spirit who resembles your grandma. We
That
don't we
reminds me
don't
of,
know.
have you ever seen Funny People?
Yeah.
When he's like with the candle going out, he's like, I don't think that's how they pass through heaven. Maybe your grandpa went to hell. As
I
soon as
don't
you
think they
said that,
pass
it
through
reminded
fire. Yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
as soon as
that's
you said, it's the first thing I thought of.
that's so funny. But yeah, I mean, I'm not here to tell people that they're wrong, but I'm also a big fan of saying the words I don't know, and I'd rather us, say those than say something without a doubt,
Hmm.
with no evidence.
I was watching something interesting yesterday, like when I went down that rabbit hole, with Steve-O. I don't know if you know that like Steve-O was battling like drugs really bad back in the
Hmm.
day, and they did a whole documentary on him and stuff. And he had done an interview where he was talking about he went like on a huge drug binge, and how like he made a really cool point. That like we're talking about like there's different dimensions, right? And then there's opportunities where those may cross paths, and that could be an explanation as to why we're able to kind of be open to those spirits or whatever, what have you, whatever it is. He was basically explaining how doing that much drugs, when you hit a certain limit with drugs, you allow yourself to kind of break those barriers of the conscious mind, that basically don't allow us to see that part. And with him doing those type of drugs, because he said he was like freaking out, like he basically categorized them. So he's like, I had basic like angels telling me, to stop doing drugs, that I was killing myself. And then you have these demon entities that are basically telling me, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And then you have these tricksters who are showing me cool shit, making me like, oh man, that's badass, like light shows and music, and they're doing all this cool stuff. And that's making me want to do more drugs so that stuff doesn't go away. And it was a pretty crazy idea to think about. I've never done drugs to that point. I think the only two hallucinogenics I've ever taken, was I did shrooms when I was younger, and I did salvia when salvia was like super under the radar before it became like super popular. And I never wanted to do that again. That trip was just way too intense for. I mean, it only lasts like 10 minutes, but I mean, I was sweaty and I went like full retard when I was on that stuff, man. Like, I actually still remember that trip too. I right when I started tripping, I actually fell over. I was sitting on my bed. I was in a dim lit room with a bunch of friends of mine, and I fell over, and I couldn't stop laughing. And in my trip, what I saw was a white picket fence pop up, and Mickey and Minnie and Daffy Duck or Donald Duck, whatever his name is, but the Disney characters were all around me, and we were eating ice cream, and they were doing all this crazy shit, and I was laughing. Well, I was laughing so hard that the ice cream was coming out of my mouth, and I kept going like this, trying to wipe the ice cream. When I came to, come to find out, it was drool. I was just drooling like crazy, and I'm just sitting there like wiping the drool, and I'm like convulsing on the bed. And when I came to, all my friends were looking at me like, "What the hell just happened?" And I'm like, wait till you take your trip, then you
You're
know.
like, who's next?
Yeah. Like my friend's girlfriend did it right after me, and we were all on my bed, and my bed was up against the wall, like long ways. So she's sitting on my bed like this, and the wall's behind her. And when she takes a hit, she starts looking for us and starts reaching out, and she pushes on the bed, tries to get up, and we're like, no, 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 sit down, sit down, sit down. And when you're on that stuff, you're talking, but you're not making any sense. It's all gibberish. So if somebody's trying to explain to you what they're seeing, all you hear is, and you're just like, what the hell? So you have to wait till they come down. Good thing it only lasts 10 minutes. But she came down, and she basically said that arms came through the wall, grabbed her, and were trying to pull her in. And the reason why she was reaching was because she was trying to reach for one of us, but then we all kind of melded together, and we were just this blob of eyes and mouths and ears and noses, and so she couldn't figure out who was who, so she didn't know where the hell she was. And so having those experiences, hearing Steve-O talk about it, I'm like, maybe there is some truth to that. Maybe that doing those type of drugs, and again, that could go into the whole like religion thing too, of like the burning bushes and all that stuff. Maybe people were just tripping balls, and it allowed them to hit that new plane.
Yeah. You should have let her hit the Disney one. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, we should have switched. Yeah, we definitely should have switched.
Because that sounds like an absolute nightmare. I would be the cleanest, soberest person if I had that kind of a trip. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. Just thinking about it right now is making my skin crawl.
Yeah, and see, we're the kind of friends that if you were to come over, like I haven't done shrooms in years, and I only did it once, and I did it because I just wanted to try it, right? I wanted to have that experience, and when we did it, a lot of my friends that do a lot of stuff on the regular, they're really cool about it. They don't just sit there and be like, "Hey man, I'm gonna mess you up," No, they sit down with you. They basically tell you the positives and negatives of doing it, and then they're like, before we did it, I remember he sat down with me and he was like, "Hey, how was your day today?" I was like, "It was good." He's like, "No, no, no, no. Did you have any negative thoughts whatsoever?" I was like, I don't think so. Why?" He's like, "Think about it for a minute." He's like, "Because if you have, we're not doing this." And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Any small little negative thought you had throughout the day, there's a chance that that's going to sneak back up and come at you tenfold. And your entire trip is going to be on that one negative thing that you thought about for like half a second." He's like, "So we need to make sure we're in a good state of mind." And I'm like, "Bro, like that's freaking me out."
Yeah, that's the self-fulfilling prophecy of like, dude, if you tripped once today, like just fell down on your face in front of people, that's all you're going to think about. It's like, I wasn't going to think about it until you said it right now.
But I mean, the good part is that it's good to know. So like, because again, like what he's basically saying is that subconsciously, even if you're not thinking about it, it might pop up, and then that's going to be a trip.
Yeah.
Thank God we had a good trip. I was in the room with them. I was playing that one game on the PC where it's like you have to match the tiles. It's some Asian name. I don't remember what it was called. But
Mahjong.
yeah, that. I ate my shrooms and I was just playing that game, and then when I beat it and the fireworks started going off, I ended up just kind of falling into my trip around that time. And then we put on Tool videos for like 7 hours and we watched Tool. And my friend started crying and was like, "Dude, I get it now. Turn it off." So it was an interesting trip for sure.
I think shrooms are one of my favorite trips. LSD has been good to me. It's like taking a hit of laughing gas, man. It lasts for hours and hours and hours. I did it, and I ended up watching Japanese pachinko machine videos on YouTube for 6-7 hours. It was insane. I played Rocket League on it, and even though I wasn't looking like straight at the screen, I was like cockeyed, cracking up the whole time, and I was just playing normal though. I wasn't like driving all over the place. I didn't like hallucinate, but like
Muscle memory,
when you try to focus, I would get like the telescope effect,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, I haven't had any like crazy. I think getting drunk is always worse.
Yeah, I don't like mixing. I got drunk and got high together one time, and I never did that again. If I'm gonna do one, I gotta do one and stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And even then with drinking, I don't drink much anymore. And again, I think this is one of the reasons why I never got addicted to drugs either. I I don't like the not being able to control myself. Like
Mm.
I'm that much of a control freak to the point like I don't like roller coasters. I don't like being a passenger in a car. So that kind of trickles down into drug usage as well. I don't like to alter my state of mind too much. Although, like what I was about to ask you, I know you dabbled in music as well. Have you ever tried to take let's call them performance enhancing.
Mm.
And have you ever done any like shrooms or LSD and tried to create music at all?
No. No, 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 no. There is no way that that would ever happen. What the word you used was retarded, but I would take it a step further and just straight up go mental slowness, and I could make small decisions about my life at that moment in time, and that's fine with me. I can, oh, I might have to go to the bathroom. You know what? Let's start working on the journey there. Let's start making the small steps to get to the bathroom, and then we'll get there in about 30 minutes, even though it's right down the hallway. And then we'll get to the bathroom, and then we got to decide how we're gonna do this. Oh, you just have to pee. Well, I think it's best if we just sit down. I think it's best, regardless of what we're doing. Let's just sit down. Let's just sit down. We won't risk anything. It'll be a pleasant experience, and none will be the wiser. But you asked me, you put a guitar in my hand, and I would just be giggling, dude. It would be an absolute nightmare. Same with like weed. When I would get high, I could jam stuff that I know really well, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd really get into it. But if I was to like write music and record, I wasn't very good. But I could smoke and record other people really well.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
ask me to
like I like
produce.
watching
Yeah.
people perform for sure. I had a friend back in the day who didn't do drugs, and I think he's tried it like once in his life just to say he had it. Very very clean dude. But he used to enjoy watching us get high. And then my old room, I had posters like all over the walls, but I had sections on my wall that like if you came to my house, you could use a highlighter and draw. And so I had like a bunch of Pokemon and like a bunch of weird shit that people would just draw on my walls. And then I had like that 70s show type table, that big wire cardboard thing or made out of wood. I had one of those. And so people would draw on that and sign it if they ever came over to my house and toked up with me. But I had a friend who literally every time he came over, I had a keyboard set up, and we had black lights. So we would just get toke up, and he would sit there and he would play music on the keyboard. But he was kind of an asshole sometimes. I love him to death. He's still my brother to this day. But he would take us on some trippy adventures. One day he took his shirt off, and I mean the dude's all cut. He's like an athletic dude, and he drew like a real intricate face on his chest with the highlighter, and he's in front of the keyboard and he's just like playing this like really dark, doomy, like ominous shit. And we're
Oh
just sitting
man,
there. Yeah, we're like, what's going on?
how
And he's
dare
right in
you?
front of us. Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
So you were talking about how, you question things and you try to find the I guess like make logical sense of stuff. I want to share a story with you that happened with me and my wife, and I kind of want to see what your take is on it because to this day I still haven't been able to answer what the hell was going on in that house. So when I met her, she was living with her aunt, and they had a duplex, and it was upstairs and downstairs. And in the duplex, the three bedrooms were upstairs. That was all that was up there. It was three bedrooms and two bathrooms. And then downstairs you had just the kitchen and the living room. One night we're sitting downstairs, and I had already been told that there's weird stuff that kind of happens in that area because the house next door, a little boy had hung himself. So we're watching TV one day, and I didn't think much of it. I was like, yeah, if I see something, great. If not, whatever. Well, one night we're sitting on the couch, we're watching Netflix, we're watching movies and stuff, and it's just me and my wife. Nobody else is in the house. Nobody's home. Neighbors aren't even home. The connecting neighbors. And as we're watching this movie, we hear stomping, doom, 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 right above our heads. And it's somebody walking like with heavy feet. And it's not running or anything, it's just like a normal walk. So I can hear it, and where we're sitting, the spare room, the empty room that when I would stay the night there, that's the room I would stay in. Her aunt was weird. She didn't want us sleeping in the same room together and all that stuff. So I respected it, and I always slept in the other room. Well, that's the room I slept in. So I run upstairs. I run haul ass up there. I turn the light on in the room. I start looking around because I think someone broke in. Right. That's my. I'm not thinking paranormal. Paranormal. I'm thinking someone broke in the house. I'm about
Mm-hmm.
to kick someone's ass. So I'm looking around. I'm looking under the bed. Nothing. But I did notice that it was super cold in that room and not in the others. So I did exactly what you did, like with looking around trying to figure it out. I look and I put my hand up on the vent. There's the AC's not on, and so I put my hand up there. There's no air blowing out, and it's super cold in there. So I walk back into the hallway, and then I try to feel if there's a breeze in there. Nothing. So I go back into the room. I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just cold outside, and the air from outside is hitting that side of the building. Touch the windows. None. It's summer night in Texas, so it's pretty gross outside. So I go back downstairs and I tell Diamond, I was like, what the hell? Like, I know you heard that, right? She's like, yeah, I heard that. And so we start watching the movie again. It happens again. I run up there, same thing. To this day, we cannot explain what the hell happened there. 2 nights later, I'm staying the night there because she worked at a bar. And so she worked at the bar her aunt owned. And they were working. And at the time, I was working as a driver. So I would could go to work, I'd come home, and then if I didn't feel like going to the bar, I'd just sleep I'd take a nap until they got home around 3 or 4 in the morning. I'd wake up and we'd shoot the shit. Well, I'm sleeping in her room. I'm on her bed at this time, and the door's closed, but the hall light's on. The hall light and the bathroom light are on, but her bedroom doors closed and it's dark in there. Well, I have my back to the door, which I never do. I always sleep facing the door, but her bed was kind of this way and the door was here, so I just basically just turned on my back turn, and I felt like someone was watching me. So I just turn around. I wake up out of a dead sleep, turn around, I look, and there's 2 feet, like shadows, like somebody's standing in front of the door. I see a shadow there. And then it stands there for a minute, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, is my wife playing a trick on me? And then it turns and it walks into the room that I normally stay in. So I get up, I open the door, and I'm like, Diamond, which is my wife's name, are you here? She's not there. I call out for her aunt. I call out for her cousin. Nothing. I walk into the room, turn the light on. Nothing. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm not sleeping no more. I go out into the backyard. I hop on the trampoline and I smoke a whole pack of cigarettes trying to figure out what the hell just happened. And to this day, I still can't figure it out.
Hmm. So, I mean, if I was trying to look at this in a logical way, um, when you have a duplex, the pipes run underneath the bedroom floors, over the living room and the kitchen. So if it's copper piping, so when a room is cold like that, it's energy displacement, usually like an electron field or something like that, is moving the molecules away, and then it gets colder because they're further apart and they're moving slower. And so it could be that the pipes had some friction and created the electromagnetic field, something along those lines. I honestly am talking out my butt because I don't have the layout of the house. I'm not there to take any measurements or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as for the shadows, you got demons, dude. You got demons in the house. Get out.
And see, and I didn't know about the little boy until after, because I told them when they came home about the guy standing outside the door. And her aunt started telling me all these crazy stories. I think her aunt's a nutbag to begin with, but she started telling me all these crazy stories. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, you're taking it to a whole nother level. But I don't take too much away from her because again, it's like I know what I saw. There's nobody else in that house, and it's not the first encounter that I've had where I can't explain what I'm looking at. And the
Right.
same thing with my friends. A lot of my friends have and you're from San Antonio, so there's a lot of um, superstitions. There's a lot of ghost stories here, and a lot of my friends have encountered a lot of those things. I've heard a lot of stories from them, with the children in the bus at the railroad tracks, and those have been debunked like crazy. But then there's also some stuff that my friends have seen, that kind of go against that. One night they were at the railroad tracks, and my buddy he bought a big old what we call the bladder busters at the gas station, and To this day, he still don't know what happened to that. They were out there just kind of fucking around. He had just bought it. He drank it. He put it down next to the car, and they were doing some other stuff. And he went back and looked for it. It wasn't there. So I was chalking it up as like, well, maybe there's a homeless dude around in the woods and he saw it and he took it. You know, that's my explanation. But the second part that really is trippy was that they were in a truck. So they were laying in the bed of the truck. And they did the whole, you know, sit on the tracks and let it push you, and they did all that stuff. So as they're driving away, jokingly, one of them goes, "Hey man, let's sit up and let's see if we see anything." And he was like, "All right, I'll do it if you do it." And he goes, "Okay." So they sit up, they look, and they both lay down. And they look at each other with this look of shock on their face. And one of my friends goes, "Dude, did you just see that?" And the other one's like, "Little girl with pigtails and a cute little dress." He's like, "Yeah." So they saw the same thing, and they can't explain what it was. But they both think that they saw a full apparition standing on the side of the road. So stuff like that creeps me out. Like, again, I wasn't there. That's a story that they told me, and I'm just like, whoa, dude. Well, if y'all both admit that y'all both saw the same thing, you know, that's pretty trippy.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much out there that's so unexplained, you know, aliens and to think that like we are at a pivotal moment where we can say for a fact that we know about stuff, man, we're babies. We're so baby when you think about the scheme of things. So I'm like Fox Mulder, you know, I want to believe. I want to believe. I want to believe, and I'm not, but I'm also trying to be biased or non-biased, you know, because sometimes you'll find evidence that's not actually there when you really want a result or something. And yeah, I don't know. I'm on the same page. You know, we're gonna find out so much more later on down the road when we're ready. But right now, it's just gonna scare the hell out of us.
And that's the thing. What's funny is I've actually been called out for that, because like my mentality, like when it comes to aliens, is I've always tell people like, either way you look at it, it's fucking terrifying. Either we are alone in this vast universe, or we aren't alone in this vast universe. Either way you look at it, I consider that scary, because if we are alone, it's like, holy shit, like then we're like a phenomenon, you know. Um, do I believe that for me, I feel like it's almost kind of narcissistic to think that in this vast universe, we're the only intelligent life form. We're the only life form that evolved to be what we are. I think it's very narcissistic to think that way. So I try to stay open to the idea. Now, if those things that come, are they going to be good or bad for us? Who's to know? You know, who's to say? But I'm ready for them to receive me, if you will.
Yeah. I think the FBI or the CIA or somebody has like 150 days to tell everybody what they know. So hopefully something comes out of that. I mean, Tom DeLonge released that video of the pill, which was like a naval ship recorded an object that was like 6 feet above the water, and then within a span of like seconds, it was at 30,000 feet, and then it moved around. And they showed Tom DeLonge this video, and Tom DeLonge was like, "Dope," and then he released it, and they're like, "No, you weren't supposed to do that." And so Joe Rogan actually had the commander of the vessel out there, and the guy was on the show, you know, he on Joe Rogan's show, and he's like, I don't know what it is. He's
That's
like,
crazy.
it's literally a UFO. It's an unidentified flying object. And I was like, oh, that's I'm ready.
Well, I know Tom DeLonge is like super into that stuff. I haven't seen many interviews of him, but I always find it funny because people try to paint him as a loony, and I'm like, you know, I don't know, man. I take it with you know, I don't write anybody off for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, I remember, I think it was the Joe Rogan podcast. He was on Joe Rogan too, wasn't he?
Yep.
I want to say that's the episode that I saw. I didn't see the other guy though. Like I gotta dig in and find that episode. But yeah, anything with aliens, like I have some friends that they've told me some really crazy shit when it comes to aliens, and you know I take all of it in. I'm just like, hey man, you know I'm not gonna discredit you or anything. Like I take that as it is, and if it's true, then holy shit. Like, but I'm with you. I heard that they have a 100. Would you say 100 something days to
Yeah.
release? So yeah, I'm waiting for that too. I actually told my mom that, and she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So we'll see something here soon, hopefully. I just hope that people can mentally prepare themselves for it, and
Yeah, and there's
I
so
think we
many
can.
whistleblowers like that guy that worked at Area 51 in the 80s, and he came out on TV. He was like, "Yeah, we're working with a crashed UFO," and everyone was like, "What?" And he like gave all his credentials and stuff, and then when they go look him up, there's no record of his existence of this guy. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. And then he would pull out a college. They're like, you didn't get a degree from this university. He's like, are you serious? And then he would pull out a newspaper, and it was him with the rest of the class doing something there. He's like, obviously I went there. And you're saying that they don't even have a record that I went to the school. He's like, but I have a doctorate's degree. And then they did a documentary on him where he has a chemical company. He sells chemicals to like construction companies and stuff. And he was talking to the documentary maker, and he goes, "Watch what's about to happen," because they're working with like Element 151 or something like that. And he goes, and it went missing from Area 51, and they think he
Ooh.
took it. And he's like, they think I took it. They think I'm out there trying to like create my own alien tech. And he's like, but watch this. He's like, there is Element 151 in this building. And they're still in the middle of filming this, right? And
Mhm.
so the next day they go to the shop and it's raided. So they're clearly listening to this guy. They're clearly
Mhm.
surveying this guy. They got his place bugged like crazy. And it got so much that he was just like, you know what? I'm done talking about all the alien stuff. He's like, it doesn't matter if people believe me anymore. It just matters that the information's out there and it's out there, and I don't need to put myself out there anymore because it's just
Mhm.
been nothing but negative for him. And I'm like, dude, that sucks. That sucks so hard.
But it also proves that, like, the government will only allow us to see what they want us to see.
Hmm.
They can completely scrub somebody off the planet like they never existed, and like that's kind of terrifying too.
Here's an unpopular opinion. I'm actually for that. I'm for not telling the public because I guarantee you, if the government came out and be like, "Yep, we got aliens that traveled from 30 million light years away," people won't be going to their jobs the next day. They're like, "What's the point? What is the point? There's no point to go to my stupid trash pickup job or McDonald's flipping burgers or doing IT stuff anymore. This technology is ancient. If we
Mhm.
have knowledge of technology that's superior to this, why would I go to work when you can do something about that right now? And also we could all everyone can eat. Everyone now can eat. We can launch the mass population that volunteers to go out into the universe and explore on these crazy starships. So I don't know. I think it's smart to not tell the public because it'd just be mass hysteria.
It's an interesting take. I didn't even think about it that way. I mean, I known about the like mass hysteria, but yeah, like the take of like people waking up, like, what's the point? Like, none of this matters anymore. I mean, if anything, I think it it could work in the favor of um, adding new life and hope into people as well. Like, look at it. I mean, sadly, majority of people look at things in a negative light, but I mean, I'm sure there's people that could look at it from a positive standpoint in the sense of like, cool, I don't have to go to work no more because I can pursue things that I actually want to pursue.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, for me, it's just always that curious mindset of just wanting to know, and wanting again, it may be truth that we don't want to know, which is why they keep it from us. But it would be nice to know.
yeah. I just don't think we're ready.
Yeah.
It's like winning the lottery. Not everyone can handle that kind of money
Hmm.
responsibly, and
So much so they made a show about it.
yeah, and I'm on the same way. Like I don't know how I would act if I woke up tomorrow and I had like $10 million in my bank account. I would be so not wanting to go to work the next day. But I would probably eventually go because I'm like, I want to do the right thing. I don't want to just like not show up anymore. And it's nice to have something to occupy your time,
Hmm.
but and contributing to society. But yeah, I just don't think we're ready.
Well, in about 100 days, we'll know.
Yeah, right.
We'll be able to see how people, because I know a lot of people who go down these rabbit holes and stuff like that. Like, it's gonna be a day of it's gonna be something that they've been waiting for a long time. So they're mentally already prepared. It's the people, a lot of the deniers, and a lot of the people who just live their daily lives, and that stuff doesn't even cross their minds. That's gonna be the people that are gonna be like, whoa, hold on, like, let's take this back. I wasn't. Those are people gonna be like, I wasn't ready. Like, I was not ready for that.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's a small portion of people who definitely it'd be a victory for them, I guess you could say, in some weird way,
Yeah,
to be like,
and
see, I'm not crazy.
yeah, and you can use the same formula like per se with like God, because if God just I mean, think about it as like a if you were a non-believer, and you can say like, well, if God is real, why doesn't He show Himself to me? He's like, because if He just did that to everybody, nobody would choose to believe Him. They would just have to believe Him. It's so different being able to wake up, look out your window, and be like, there's God. But when you put that, the whole point of like the Christian faith or whatever is to put your belief into Him and believe Him without seeing. And so it's man, I don't know. We're not ready. We're not ready for God to show Himself to everybody, because even if He did, is that going to change how you think? Because you could still have the same mindset of like, oh, I'm just going to use people to get what I want. Even though God's right there in front of me, I believe that He's there. I still am going to be, a rotten person, you know.
That I like that take, because from a personal standpoint, I've grown up questioning religion a lot, right? And I'm now 32, and I'm starting to build my relationship with God on my own terms. Um, but I've always questioned religion as a whole, and a lot of the judgmental ones that have come towards me with it have really kind of pushed me away from it. But what
Mm,
you said is very interesting, because there's truth and validity to that, for the fact that I'm an individual that, I grew up with really good morals. My mom raised me right. I don't cheat people. I mean, I'm the type of person that if a cashier gives me too much money back, I point out that flaw and I fix it for them. I try to stay true to myself, and I try to stay honest and genuine with anybody and everybody that I meet. And I'm just that type of dude, regardless if I'm religious or not. Um, and I know I come from a family that has good people and some rotten people. And the thing that growing up I noticed from the rotten side of the family is that they had this mentality of like, I'll do all this fucked up shit because God will forgive me. Like this
mm,
weird mentality of like, doesn't matter what I do because He forgives. So playing that into what you were saying, I think that's true. Like, there's just some people who, even if God Himself was to show Himself to you, would that really make you change? Because I think it comes down to character and personality and just your own moral compass. I don't think religion so much dictates someone's moral compass. 'Cause I've seen people who were very religious, who are still very judgmental, who are still very hateful. And I'm like, why do you have so much hate in your heart when you sit there and try to preach the word of God? You're doing the exact opposite.
mm-hmm.
Like, the hypocrisy is strong with you. Um, so yeah, that's a really, I like that take on it, because it does make a lot of sense. And like I said, for me, I'm not a religious person. I've had people try to convert me, and when I was a driver, I used to work for Mercedes Benz way back in the day, and I was a driver, so I got to drive all these cool cars and stuff, and I got to drive a lot of rich people around. And I drove a guy who worked for a church, and it was a mega church, and he he wasn't the main pastor there, but he was affiliated with them. And this dude literally judged me from the get-go, like as soon as he got in the car. And because I told him I wasn't sure, because the first question he asked me is, do you believe in God? And I just flat out told him, I don't know. I don't know what I believe. Do I believe that there's something out there that I can't explain? Sure. Do I believe that there's a difference between good and evil? Sure. That there's a difference between light and dark? Sure. I think that you need to have that contrast. But do I believe that I need to live my life because there's a man in the sky who is going to send me to my fiery damnation if I don't? Then no. And then he's basically like, well, if you don't accept God and Jesus Christ into your heart, then that's where you're going to end up. And I'm like, but that doesn't make sense to me, because I've never in my life done anything that would classify me to go to that place. I've always tried to live with a good heart and live for good. And I've always been a protector. I've always protected people from others that want to do harm, and I've never screwed anybody over, or at least tried not to. You know what I mean? And he still was trying to tell me, no, you'll go. So I was like, so you're basically putting me in the same category as like a serial killer. He's like, basically. I'm like, how is that fair? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I feel like you're just trying to scare me into believing what you believe, and that I don't agree with. I was like, that's what I believe pushes a lot of people in my generation away from faith like that. So a lot of times, like faith, like I remember when faith and politics were things you didn't talk about. I grew up having elders tell me those are the topics you don't want to get into with other people. And the current climate that we're in, like it's all over the place. And it kind of sucks because you really get this to see the ugly in people when it comes to both faith and politics, and it hurts my heart because like I did another podcast a couple days ago, and that was one of the things that I brought up. Was I was telling them, I'm at an age now where I'm trying to eliminate hate from my heart. Like regardless of what you believe, I want to try to find common ground and know that I'm not judging anyone for anything that they believe. I don't try to convert people, but I am very opinionated. And I think that's kind of where I need to learn myself how to talk and how to word things certain ways to, one, not offend, and two, to try to get my point across without seeming judgmental. Because I'm not being judgmental. I'm just, these are my opinions. These are the facts that I'm going off of. But I'm always willing to find that common ground.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like having these kind of conversations. I like having people like you to talk to. We didn't know each other prior to meeting because of our podcast, and that's one of the positives that I'm starting to see. COVID is hell, man. COVID has really done a number on not only the US, but the world in general. But the silver lining and the one positive that I've found with COVID is it's allowed people who typically have the mindset of, I got to go to work, pay my bills, go home, get up and do it again. It's allowed those individuals to finally put their time into a passion, whether it be podcasting, whether it be music, whether it be drawing, whether it be poetry, whatever it is they're passionate about. They've had the time to do that now. They've had the time to explore that, which I think is allowing people to calm down a little bit and not be so jaded, not be so stressed out. But also, there's an influx of podcasts that are going up, and people are now having these conversations. The majority of podcasts coming out, though, if I have to be honest with myself, I've been seeing a lot of podcasters. They want to have people that are like-minded, and they want to have discussions and not go
The
too
echo
deep.
chamber, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's still there. But the people that I've run into, the podcasts that I listen to by talking to these people, your podcast, Behind the Behind, like, I like that you're willing to have the conversations with anybody, and you're willing to listen, and you're willing to have that dialogue. Like that, to me, that makes my heart full, as corny as that sounds, but that's the content that I always look for. That's the content that I strive to make. I don't want to offend. I know I'm going to. I can't please everyone.
Right.
But for the most part, I want that dialogue to be there, and I'm glad that out of all of this darkness, there is that that silver lining, that shred of light of like, hey man, people are having that discussion. People are tired of not being able to say what they need to say, and it's great to see people be able to have that dialogue back and forth. And the true people who are genuine about wanting to find common ground, and they actually do find it.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna say something that's gonna offend a lot of Christians out there. I love going to church and stuff. My wife and I are pretty big in our church. Her more so than me right now. I haven't been in a while, but if you notice like Western Christianity and how not just like the US but like the UK and like Catholicism and stuff, how it traversed and whatnot was through fear. They did this whole "you're going to hell if you don't do something this way," and they created this space of, you know, damnation. And we've never been called to do, like, if you read any part of the Bible, we've never been called to do any of that. And I'm wondering where the turn happened. And it's a big part on, like, I think Satan is able to use, you know, the church and God's name to do lots of harm. And then this is probably going to upset a lot of people too. We we have to get out of this mindset of uh how do you say that you have to ask God for forgiveness. Never said that in the Bible. The Bible said Jesus died for your sins. That's it. He already did. You're already forgiven. The logical next step in Christianity is now to forgive yourself and forgive others. And that's the only way that you can make a good impact now, you know. You have to you it's not about bringing people closer to God is part of it, but you do that when you bring people closer to you. And you do that by making these relationships that last. And you do that by having these discussions with people that are going to be kind of hard and they're going to be kind of, put you out of your comfort zone. And I'm 1,000% on the side. I don't know if anybody else really believes this, but we have to start learning how to forgive ourselves so that we can reach out and be like, you know what? I'm not that bad of a person. I don't have to suffer. Because when you do that, you stop yourself from being able to reach out. And if you were able to reach out to somebody, you might have saved that person's life. You might have stopped them from killing themselves that day. Or maybe you halted them for 2 minutes and they missed a car accident they were going to get into. You never know. And I humbly believe that there is a creator and that he knows what's going to happen before it happens. But I also believe he kind of left it up to us as well, you know? So, I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, but it's true. I think people need to definitely learn to love themselves. It because you tend to reflect on others a little bit. You know, if you're not happy, if you're jaded, or you're not quite excited about how your life turned out, that tends to reflect on how you are and interact with other people. And that's why I kind of said, I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to have hate in my heart anymore. I want to try to make all my conversations as positive as possible. And you mentioned, with the churches and stuff, I fully believe that, you know, there have been dark forces that have taken over churches
Mm,
for sure. Um, even down to the Vatican. I think there's a lot of dark forces that have made their way through it, and you can see it. For me, I think on the surface, you can see it. Like I mentioned, mega churches. Like, why do we need mega churches? Why do these pastors need to be living this crazy life of luxury? It makes you. I can't follow people like that when your whole congregation are struggling to make ends meet and you're driving around in a Bentley and having private jets. It's hard for me to believe anything that comes out of your mouth when you've surrounded yourself, and instead of praising God, you've proven that you praise the almighty greenback.
mm,
Um, it's hard for me to take those type of people seriously, and that's why I think that there is evil that has infiltrated the churches, and I think there needs to be a cleansing. And I think once that happens, more people will be more open to accept God into their homes, into their lives, and definitely start loving themselves. But I mean, at the end of the day, it starts with you. You have to work on yourself. You have
Mhm.
to be willing to accept your past and know where you want to go with your future.
Yeah. You're right. These mega church pastors, they go up there and they tell you that we're a family. But I don't know if I saw someone in my family struggling so much and I was doing amazing, there's no way I would keep letting them struggle. There's no way I could possibly be okay doing that. There's no way I could go to sleep at night and be like, "And they'll figure it out. God will bless them." No.
Yeah, it's a cop out, man.
God will bless him through you. That's why he put you there. He put you there so you physically can make these decisions to influence someone's life. And not just go up there and tell them, you're doing it all wrong. You got to give me your money and we can give it to God. We can do all this work. It's like I love the story of in the Bible they talk about like the rich guy gives his 10% and then the beggar lady gives her 2 pennies. And it has nothing to do with you have to make sure you give to the church. It had everything to do with her completely believing that God was going to take care of her. You know, and when these guys go up there and they start speaking, and it's me, it's God spoke to me. God did this for me, and I'm gonna save you. And
Self-indulgent for sure.
yeah, and it's absolutely abhorrent because the only way that a society is going to do well is when we take care of those who don't do well. It's just like a sports team. You can only measure the sports team by their weakest link, you know? So whoever's out on that field, the slowest player, that's how you measure the team because that's the weak point. That's where the enemy team's going to go and attack. So I don't know how it doesn't. It's not. It's common. You would think it'd be common sense, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah, it's and like you said, for me too. One of the things I was telling my mom, like my mom's never been a church goer, and she's always kind of stuck to herself. She prays on her own time, and I remember asking her, "Why don't you go to church?" And my mom's like, "I wouldn't mind going, but at the end of the day, I don't. It doesn't bother me because I know where I stand with God. I have a relationship with Him personally, and so if I can't make it to church, that's okay because I talk to Him every day. I don't need a place to go in and be like, okay, now I can have a relationship with Him. She's like, I live and breathe my relationship with Him. Every day I wake up, I'm thankful for living another day, waking up, seeing my family, and my mom is really trying. She's doing kind of what I'm doing. Like I said, we're trying to cleanse and not have hate in our heart. My mom had a rough life, and she's kind of jaded from it, but she's working on it. And I think the more conversation she's been having here lately, and her really reading her Bible and really just diving into it, you really start seeing that change in her. And again, like you were saying with like the 2 pennies, that was kind of like my point with the mega churches. It's like, bro, like if you want me to take you seriously and you have your faith in God, you're supposed to be setting the example for the rest of your congregation. So why have you not given up your possessions? Why do you keep buying more and adding instead of living like very simple and showing that like I don't need all this stuff because at the end of the day I have the basic necessities that I need because I live here to preach the word of God.
Mm,
And I feel like that's how it should be. And I feel like that's how it was back then, but we've definitely have changed, and money has become the new idol. And
yeah.
now you having all these false idols come about. And this is why I don't like trip over meeting famous people. When I was doing band stuff, I met a lot of famous artists, and I never fanboyed over any of them because and again, I was never religious at that point. I've never understood of the whole false idol thing. I don't worship somebody. To me, you're a human being just like me. You get up and you put your pants on one foot at a time or one leg at a time.
You still poop
So
out your butt. That's
yep.
that's what I think. I mean, you
And
still
some of y'all
gotta.
probably don't even wipe right.
Yeah. We all poop. Yeah, man. The whole point of like what Christ was trying to teach people was I don't want you to go out and tell people that they're going to go to hell if they don't believe in me. I want you to live a life that people come to you and ask you, well, how is this happening for you? And that's when you say, honestly, I think it's God. I think God's just blessing me. I'm trying to live a right way. This is how I'm doing it. I've gotten closer to Him, because Jesus hung out with the drinkers and the hookers and the drug dealers at the time. Like He hung out with the bad crowd, and then He just hung around and spoke. They wanted to hear what He had to say. It wasn't a, hey, I need to talk to you. Come here real quick. I'm going to tell you that your life is bad. You're a bad, bad, bad. You need to do good, good. You know,
He became an influencer by just being a genuine person. And
exactly. He
and
listened to their stories.
mhm.
And it's so he would have the dopest podcast probably. You'd
Yeah,
have
he
like
would surpass Joe Rogan's listeners by
he
or his
he
numbers by
he
easy.
would yeah he would have some of the toughest dogs on there from like MS-13 Mafia, Yakuza type dudes. Just like they've murdered so many, and they're like he would just be like, yeah, tell me about it, and then just being a caring person talking to these guys, they'd be crying like babies, and they'd be like, I'm so sorry. And it's not like the people he spoke to instantly became good people. They just took steps. It's never going to be, oh, tomorrow's going to be the day.
Mhm.
And yeah, the Western Christian civilization is we're scaring people out of their paychecks, and I'm not about it.
And it's interesting you're mentioning about change too, about like that they're not going to change instantly. I think that's kind of where we are mentally as a society too, is that everything we want fast. We've been conditioned to this satisfaction like instantly. And I think that plays into that, like what you were saying, like people want change quickly, people because we get everything else in life, at the drop of a button. So why can't we get change? We want to be able to change without having to put the work in and realizing that it's gonna take time. You're gonna fall. You're gonna fail. But how are you going to react to those failures is basically on you, and that's going to determine if you change or not. And again, that's that taking that accountability and knowing what you're capable of. And I think that's really hard for some people, and I think that's why they quit so soon.
Yeah.
Um,
Like the mobster guys, when you go to collect and they don't have it all, maybe don't break their kneecap this one time. Turn the other cheek.
but then I'll look weak.
Or you'll look strong because you're not afraid to let him have a second chance.
See?
Big brain, smooth brain.
So what you're telling me is you're gonna change the game. You're gonna create your own drug ring, and you're gonna be Mac Daddy.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, it was great. I definitely want to do this again, man. Like,
Yeah, it was a
you're
good
you're
time.
you're a fun guest. We got a little deeper than I thought we were gonna get, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I want to have more of these conversations with you if you're willing to come on and do some more. And if
Always.
you're willing to have me on your podcast again, man, I can bring some more ghost stories, some more crazier ones. I didn't even touch the surface on some of the crazy shit that I've seen,
Yeah.
that I've gone through in life. And some of the crazy, I think my sister, I have a story about my sister. I think she was uh, involved with a demon one night, and I can share that story with you as well. But before we go, man, I want to have you take a moment and just kind of plug anything that you need to plug, and we can go from there.
Awesome. Well, you guys can catch me on OnlyFans. I'm just kidding.
I
Yeah,
was
you
about to
can.
get my pen and write it down.
You can find Behind the Behind on all your social networks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at BT Behind. Give us a shout out. You can send us a message if you have a cool story. We're totally willing to hear it. And you can listen to the show on anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Man,
Awesome,
that's
man.
about it.
Cool. And just, you have anything really cool coming up in the next couple of weeks? Anything that you're super excited about?
Um, Man, I don't know. My mind's blank because I do 2 episodes a week normally. This week I decided to do 4 to try to do a little catch up. I'm guesting on one of my favorite podcasts of all time this Sunday, so that's kind of a cool thing.
Cool.
Uh, we're gonna talk about the movie Neverending Story. It's my favorite
Nice.
movie of all
Dude,
time.
I haven't seen
So
that movie in years.
I have to see it once, like every 6 months at least. So
And now I'm gonna have to go watch it now because you mentioned it. So now it's gonna bug me if I don't go watch it.
just don't cry, man. I know our tax. No. Ugh, every time.
Dude. I cry so easily in movies. I mean, I cried during the Pokemon movie, the original Pokemon movie.
Oh yeah.
Like I cry so easily, and then if anything, my wife cries easier than I do, and I'm always making fun of her. And she's like, "Shut up! I saw you cry at like," and then she'll name some like crazy movie that I shouldn't have cried in, or like she likes to bring up Sons of Anarchy because that's one of my favorite shows. And when the Opie thing happens, like I always cry during that still.
You cried during Rush Hour. It's like, yeah, but that's because I was laughing really hard. That doesn't count.
I cried during Superbad. Leave me alone. Well, cool, man. And then what are your do you have like designated days when you drop episodes?
Yeah, so they'll drop at 6 a.m. on Tuesday and Thursdays.
Awesome. So everyone listening, definitely go check out Behind the Behind. I had a great time on it, and I still go in and I check out your episodes because you do have really cool, interesting people on there. So it's always a fun listen. But again, thanks for coming, man, and hopefully we can set this up and do it again.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. And for everybody listening, as always, enjoy your Friday, have a safe weekend, and until next time.